Hey everybody. So Milo has decided that now is the perfect time to fall asleep on me. So we're going to read him a bedtime story and read one for you too. Hey sweet boy. It's a book. The castle stood like a neglected sore upon the northernmost side of the ravaged peak. Blacker than the night, blacker than the ebony armor of the guardsman, it could only truly be compared to the abyss of Huma's dreams, so foul was it. Huma wondered if perhaps he should have waited until he could have gathered more lancers. Yet there was no turning back. The Dragon Queen had to be confronted. "What now, Huma?" The silver dragon looked up at him. There was death in her eyes, not for him, but rather for herself. He could see that she had given up all hope of becoming his. The knight wanted to say something, anything, but he could not. Not to that reptilian visage, so alien, he felt ashamed. We find a way in. We find Galandracos. Seen closely, the castle was even more obscene. It looked to be rotting before their very eyes. Small chunks of mortar fell from time to time, but no substance seemed to be lost. Withered vines wrapped around its outer walls, and even while Huma pondered how vines such as these could exist at so cold a level, he noted that they appeared to have been dying for some time. Gruesome gargoyles stood watch on the battlements. Close examination proved them not to be demonic creatures, but the works of some mad sculptor. Two towers rose above all else in the edifice. One appeared to be a watchtower. One appeared to be a watchtower, for it had been placed on the far edge away from the mountain, giving those at the top a fantastic view of both the mountain range and the lands to the east. The other tower seemed completely out of place. It was broad, taking up nearly a quarter of the inner grounds. Where the rest of the castle seemed decrepit with age, the tower seemed new and nearly spotless. Huma had no doubt that this was where to find the renegade. "There are no defenders!" Bennett shouted. Not one sentry walked the walls. There was no one in the watchtower, nor were there any guardsmen in the courtyard. The entire structure looked as if it were abandoned, though Huma knew that Galandracos awaited them. Huma turned to the others. "Disperse! I'm going in alone!" Below him, the silver dragon quivered, but kept her eyes straight ahead. Kaz was not so silent. "Disperse? Are you mad? Do you think we'd leave you?" "Dracos wants me. That shall be the way that it is." Bennett had his dragon shift closer. "I will not permit you to do this." "It is madness indeed, Huma," remarked the gold dragon, serving Bennett. With a suddenness that made Huma grab for the pommel of the saddle, the silver dragon swooped down towards the castle, leaving the others open-mouthed. She had taken the decision out of their hands. They might follow, but they would not be able to catch up. The courtyard lay directly below. Huma wondered at the size of the castle. Galandracos could not be so powerful as to keep this citadel perpetually standing on the side of a peak and hidden from the sight of men, and still have the strength for all that he had done. He was still pondering when something of tremendous power struck him and Gwyneth. What seemed to be a giant hand plucked him from the saddle. The world vanished. He awoke in a narrow hall. Only one torch lit a dim corridor. The walls were cold stone, and the place had a dank smell. It nauseated Huma. Why was he here? If it was a trap created by and sprung by Dracos, why was the knight not locked in a dungeon cell, his armor and weapons stripped? Weapons. He reached down by his side and felt the hilt of his sword. After a quick inspection, he determined that he still had his knives as well. What sort of trick was this? The clank of metal alerted him to the presence of armored figures just down the side corridor. Huma drew his sword carefully. He did not trust these corridors enough to go racing down them blindly. They reminded him too much of the cavern tunnels in which he had been hounded by Wormfather. Sword raised, he stood on the right side of the corridor intersection and held his breath. By his reckoning, there were at least two. He had hoped to get the first one, possibly the second, but not three without a general alarm being raised. A dark boot came into sight. A familiar ebony armor swerved to the left. A second guardsman followed the first. Huma held his breath. A gauntleted hand shot towards the long, wicked blade Huma had seen earlier in the hands of the Dragon Rider commander. The first guardsman turned round at the noise and went for his. Though the second had noticed Huma, he was unable to draw his sword quickly enough. Huma ran him through the neck before the jagged blade was even halfway out of the scabbard. The walls rang as Huma ducked a swing by the other attacker. The guardsman's blade cut deep into the stone and yet slid out easily. Huma parried a second attack and then took the lead. His opponent was good, but not as good as a well-trained Knight of Solamnia. Defenses became more and more sloppy as the jet-black figure realized that he lacked the skill to overcome the trespasser. Huma forced the other's sword high and kicked. Quarters were too close for the guardsman to dodge. As his opponent fell back and tried to recover, the knight ran him through. The noise would surely bring someone. Huma stared down the corridor that the guards had come from, and the one that they had chosen at the intersection. Both seemed to go on and on. As quietly as possible, he began to make his way down the corridor in the opposite direction. It was virtually dark, and Huma had to feel along the walls to make sure he was not missing any side corridors or intersections. Where was the silver dragon, he wondered. Where was Gwyneth? The knight corrected himself. Whatever shape or form she wore, she was Gwyneth. He understood that much, even if he really did not understand his own feelings. She had to be here somewhere, Huma reasoned. Perhaps, like himself, she was wandering aimlessly in some darkened part of the citadel in a fruitless search for him. On impulse, he withdrew the medallion from his chest and held it close. Its warmth filled him, and the medallion began to glow with an intensity akin to the dragonlance's. Just then, a voice echoed down the hallway. Two voices spoke in hisses, not members of the warlord's black guard, for they rarely spoke, Huma had noticed. Mages. But were they renegades or those who had sworn to aid the knighthood? He held his blade ready, silently cursing for the lack of true light. Darkness was a magic user's friend, for, like an assassin, magic users were notorious for sleight-of-hand skills. Huma hoped that he could take both of them quickly.
He must be here! Why did you do it? The renegade had them both.
The first of the two... Hi! I was getting a snoot in my mouth. The first of the two spellcasters suddenly found himself standing with a sword point beneath his chin. His companion made no move to attack Huma.
No false moves. It is him,
the other mage hissed at his comrade.
I can see that,
the spellcaster said, then added to Huma.
We are allies, did not Gunther tell you?
The spellcaster's face was difficult to read in the dark, but Huma thought his eyes were wide with fear. Gunther?
Slight, with animal features, bald.
A simple description, but fairly accurate. That did not mean these two were friends, however.
He gave you a tiny emerald sphere.
All right. It was risky, but Huma decided to lower the sword. The mages sighed audibly. Both were of average height, and one was on the heavy side, but Huma could only guess at the details.
Another time, and we might have taught you what it is to threaten one of the Order of Nuatari, the heavier one grumbled. But now, circumstances force us to aid you.
I care for it as little as you.
Dracos knew you would take the empty courtyard as an invitation to land, but he planned a surprise for you. We did not have the time to seize both of you, so we settled on you as the most important. In order to prevent one of the renegades from tracing you, we were forced to fling you in a random direction in the castle and hope for the best. I had a very good idea where you would land. There was no reason to worry. The narrower of the two mages gave an audible sniff of contempt.
Some of us are purely lucky at times. The words of the stocky mage were aimed at his companion. And Huma got the vague notion that they were brothers of the flesh as well as of the cloth.
Be that as it may, we want you...
Oh, you want? Huma's grip on his sword tightened, and he waved it at the level of the two spellcasters' throats. Do not take orders from black robes. We work together, yes, but as equals. Milo is helping me turn the page. Twin sighs. Allies such as these Huma could have done without, yet they had saved his life once already. What happened to the dragon I was riding?
That thing, asked the first mage. It's frozen, in stasis. Galandracos wastes no raw material.
What does that mean? The thought of something terrible might be happening to Gwyneth, even now, nearly put Huma into a panic. Hey, buddy. I love you. I love you. You're a good boy. I love you. Hi. Hi. You're super cute. Hi. I love you. The mages mistook that panic for murderous anger and quickly did their best to placate him.
Nothing. He's much too busy at the moment. He has some grand spell which he claims is going to change Kryn forever. He has no time for the dragon.
Huma took a deep breath and calmed. You've been an invaluable assistance up to now, but I think you've compromised yourselves. Surely he suspects all black robes by this time. The thin mage sniffed again. He does not know how great the revolt has become. He suspects only a few disgruntled members of our order. He does not suspect that it is a mass conversion. We will not bow down as slaves to the cur and his mistress. Be silent, hissed the first. You'll draw her attention. That is one thing we cannot face. Cannot? Huma looked at both of them in disgust and wished that they would truly see his expression. You want to hop down, buddy? Okay. So, you still intend for me to do all the work for you. Fine. Which way lies Galandrakos? You cannot be that mad! It was difficult to tell which of the two had spoken. Which way? We brought him here, said the first to the second. We may as well get it over with. This is not the way we planned! Has anything we planned from the beginning gone as we thought? Saganthus died the first time he spoke up against the renegades, and he was the one who recruited them, promised them that we would agree to coexistence with them, that they would no longer be hunted down and destroyed if they refused to join the three orders and obey the guiding laws set down by the conclave. That was our mistake. We promised them freedom to continue their abominable experiments that go beyond even our tolerant limits. Huma prevented the present argument from going any further by thrusting the tip of his blade between the faces of the two bickering spellcasters. They became stone silent instantly. Galandrakos, last time, where? The stocky mage listed a sequence of turns and distances, repeated again, and then asked Huma if he had memorized it, and Huma did. We shall endeavor to free the dragon if we can. If not, the mage shrugged. What about my other companions? They departed when the trap was sprung. I cannot say whether they will return. Perhaps they've scurried back to Vingard. Huma ignored the jibe. He was sure the others were nearby and were planning. It would be best if he continued his present course of action. Footsteps echoed down the hall. The two magic users literally jumped. Go! Whispered the narrow one. With quick steps, Huma moved away from the black robes. He faintly heard the sounds of voices, and realized that the two were stalling for him as long as they could. Ahead, he saw the shadows of armored men. Huma ducked back into another corridor and waited. 6 guards walked by silently, their attention fixed on whatever duties they had been given. The black robes were in more danger than they knew. If Huma read the situation correctly, the guardsmen were beginning the process of rounding them up. If they did not intend to kill them immediately, that would leave Huma alone to deal with Galandrakos and his goddess of pure evil. Huma paused at the next turn, for he was suddenly confronted by 3 brightly lit passages.
Move the mic a little closer. Hey there, Bryce. Hey there, cute boy.
Huma paused. Yeah. Voices. Huma crept closer, then froze as he recognized one. You know what to do with the gem, Garrus. A plan has been chosen, Master Galen. We will await for your signal there. It is merely a safeguard, Garrus. She demanded it, but it is my signal that you will obey when the time comes. Understand? The one called Garrus answered with a slurring voice. Huma suspected that Dracos had need to reinforce his commands with something akin to mesmerism.
Oh, Milo, you are a big boy.
Apparently satisfied that he would be obeyed, Galandrakos ordered the other to depart immediately. Huma stumbled back, but Garrus, seemingly a renegade like his master, for he wore a plain brown cloak and not one of the black, did not depart through that entrance. Instead, his footsteps dwindled away in another direction. There was more than one entrance to the chamber. Apprehensively, Huma set off towards the chamber, down another corridor. Slowly, as he edged closer, he peeked into the room. If anything, the chamber was more a design in madness than the rest of the castle was. Huge demonic figures lined the walls, each appearing ready to pounce upon any unsuspecting intruder. The thought made Huma shiver. Chief among the artifacts in the room was a platform seemingly made of black crystal. It rose in 4 tiers, upon the last of which stood a gleaming emerald sphere. The knight pulled back quickly. Dracos was indeed there, and standing before the sphere, his back turned towards Huma. The presence of the mage had been expected, but sitting calmly behind the sphere, 3 times the size of a man, and watching intently, was a green dragon. Huma had never seen such a dragon, and that was what disturbed him. You see now why I have always held the upper hand, do you not, my little friend?
Great is Master Gallon, the young dragon hissed. It had a cruel, sly voice, even for one of its kind. What little Huma knew of the green dragons revealed them to be the most sinister, for they worked most often through trickery and deceit. Open combat was not their way, but they were just as respected for their physical abilities as their minds, their convoluted, treacherous minds.
Cyan Bloodbane learns much whilst watching Master Gallon.
The renegade's laugh was just as cold and cruel as the young dragon's voice.
Cyan Bloodbane will never grow to his full potential if he thinks to ever master me.
You are an experiment, Cyan. Through me, you have come to understand the minds of humans, elves, and dwarves, and all the other races, as none of your kind has. When you are fully grown, your name will strike terror, even in their dreams. But not if you cross me. Something began to choke uncontrollably, and Huma wondered if perhaps the dragon had decided to end the mage's arrogant speech. A moment later, he heard Cyan Bloodbane apologizing frantically.
Master Gallon is all-powerful! No more, please!
This room grows too foul from your chlorine-infested breath. Depart. I will summon you when I wish your presence again.
Master!
The wings flapped, and Huma realized that this chamber must have an outside entrance on a higher level. The sound of footsteps alerted him that Dracos was moving away. Huma dared peer around again and caught sight of the mage's back before the latter disappeared through another archway. The chamber torches seemed to dim as he departed. Huma took a step into the chamber. He half expected some sorcerer's trap, but nothing so much as flickered. I love you, good boy. Okay, we gotta find a way for you to stop having a wiggle. Okay. Is it better? Is it better? Please don't stop. Okay. You're gonna just hang out there? Okay. I love you.
There is a mic.
With carefully measured... Oh, that's sensitive. Okay, buddy. I think you need to hop down. Hop on down.
I love you. Okay. Boop. I love you, good boy.
With carefully measured steps, he made his way to the black crystalline platform and stared at the large sphere. Perhaps, he thought, this was what his tiny guide had been drawn to. Perhaps this was how Dracos kept the existence of the castle from the outside world. Or, it might be. He was struck by a wave of revulsion that made him stagger and nearly caused him to drop his sword. It was coming, he realized dimly, from the globe itself. Huma closed his eyes briefly and concentrated. The hatred vanished to be replaced with contempt and humor as someone mocked him, mocked his very existence. Huma forced his eyes open, knowing what he would see and refusing to let it daunt him. She was there, staring at him from somewhere, staring at him through the sphere. Takesis. Oddly, Huma's first thought was whether Galen Dracos knew that she could reach into this chamber. Did she suspect, as Huma was just beginning to, that based on his commands to the mesmerized servant, Dracos plotted something against her? Surely she suspected that one as ambitious as the renegade would never be satisfied unless he controlled all. Was that perhaps why she smiled? Smiled? There had been no true face there at first. Now, though, the Dark Queen permitted herself eyes, a nose, and a mouth. It was a feminine face, though she might very well have appeared as an armored warrior or even a tree if it suited her fancy. In truth, the more she stared, the more Huma knew that he had never seen such a beautiful face. These were sculpted features of a queen among queens, truly an immortal. A man could easily become lost in that beauty for eternity. For such a small price, what had the knighthood given him but misery? Because of it, he had lost his parents, Renard, and countless comrades, including Boron. Even his love had been taken away from him. Lies! The fog lifted from his mind, and he saw the lies behind the so-called truths. Renard had been lost long before the knighthood. He had been responsible for the death of Huma's mother. Huma's father, Durak, had died fighting for something he believed in desperately, something he found worth dying for. As for Gwyneth, the thought remained unfinished. Rather than strike him down, the Dark Queen merely smiled.
The face vanished. Only a touch of the evil that was the Dragon Queen remained behind to remind him what he had just experienced. "I think it's time to end this game," said Galandracos suddenly. Chapter 30. Galandracos folded his arms and stared at the night. His thin lips were curled in a smile like a scavenger. The renegade mage reached up and pulled back the hood of his cloak so that his face was fully visible. His hair, thin and straggly, was plastered to his skull and formed a widow's peak on his forehead. The head itself was elongated, almost inhuman. The mage reached out and patted the bone-white head of one of a pair of dreadwolves that flanked him. The motion revealed long, bony fingers ending in talons. "And so we come to the end. Excuse me. I would have wanted it no other way. You had to be here to see my triumph. The ultimate triumph. You knew I was here? The followers of Nuatari do him no credit. They are so caught up in their self-importance that they do not realize what one can do when unconstrained by the laws set by those fools running the conclave of the three orders. I wouldn't look for support from them." As Draco spoke, Huma was gauging his options, and there were not many. A plan born of desperation filtered through his mind. Huma took a step back and held his free hand over the great sphere in which the knight, only moments before, had faced the vision of the Dragon Queen. "One motion and I shatter this. Where will your dreams be then?" "They would literally fall to pieces if you could indeed break the globe. I offer you the opportunity to try." Huma struck the top of the emerald sphere as hard as he could. His gauntleted hand bounced off. There was not even a single scratch on the globe. "You see?" Huma nodded and allowed his free hand to fall casually to his belt. "I think," was all Galandracos managed to say before Huma pulled out a sharp blade and threw it directly at the mage. The dagger flew with accuracy, yet the renegade merely raised a finger and the blade slowed, arched, and blew back towards Huma. The knight dove forwards and tumbled down the steps of the crystalline platform. The knife bounced off the huge green sphere and fell with a clatter to the floor. "Pathetic. I'd expected more from you after all of this." Before Huma could steady himself, Draco snapped his finger. The knight suddenly was gripped from behind by a massive hand seemingly made of stone. He struggled, trying to pry apart the thick, monstrous fingers. The unseen menace did not waver, and Huma's armor began to dig into his flesh. "Against that wall," Draco's pointed. Huma whirled around and lifted up. Something cold and rocky caught hold of each wrist and then his ankles. The knight was trapped. The rapid, precise movements had given Huma no opportunity to glimpse the mage's servant. Suddenly, Huma could see with dismay that his captor had actually been one of the gargoyles lining the room. As Huma watched, the gargoyle slowly returned to its niche. Over his shoulder, Huma could see that another gargoyle, little more than arms, held him tight against the wall. "I see you admire my handiwork." Draco stepped closer, and the captive knight saw that a thin layer of scales covered much of his face. The renegade was almost reptilian in appearance, and Huma found himself wondering just how much of his humanity the mage had surrendered for power. "To be fair, I underestimated you in the beginning. I thought you only a pawn of Magus, a former friend he once more found useful. Imagine my surprise to discover that not only weren't you a pawn, but our mutual friend actually trusted you." Talk of Magus made Huma struggle, but the paws of the gargoyle permitted him no slack. He glared helplessly at the renegade, who only beamed in greater satisfaction. "He renounced everything he had done, you know. I doubt there was a whiter robe in all of Kryn in those last few days. Pity, you should have heard the screams. My assistants can be imaginative. I had to punish one for over-enthusiasm. You would have killed our friend." The renegade chuckled. "I do so hate to discourage imagination, though. Not that it mattered by then. I fear that Magus was not really with us after that. He began to talk to himself. Childhood things, I gather. It annoyed my servants to no end. He paid no attention to their fine work. In fact, he didn't even speak again until you and I met. You must have meant a great deal to him for him to come back from whatever safe haven he had thrust his mind into." Draco shrugged. "Enough talk of the past. Let us deal now with the future, for those of us who still have one." Huma smiled back at the mage, though his mind raced with worry. The dragons are defeated, your renegades are defeated, Krynos and most of his black guard are dead. Before the day is through, the ogres will be retreating. You've lost. Within a few weeks, the war will be only a memory. The eyes of Dracos flared, and Huma saw that he had struck a nerve. When the spellcaster spoke again, his voice was rough, angry. Correct on all counts, save one. The ogres will retreat. They are bullies at heart, and bullies are cowards. They are fodder, nothing more, and they will be quite surprised to know what little importance they would have had in my world. Your world. My world, as voice of my mistress Takesis, of course. Dracos executed a flawless courtly bow. You have no army. That was the trouble with Krynos. He saw everything as a battle. Even when he conceded the benefits of my powers, he saw them only as a means to his own ends. Galen Dracos had crossed over to the dark crystalline platform and was now at the top, practically caressing the sphere. The emerald glow lit his face, making him look like a long-dead corpse. Huma shuddered involuntarily. The intensity of my power comes from my followers, both willing and unwilling. When the black-robed Saganthus found me, this was what had interested him at first. I was a fool at that time, keeping no more than a few of the locals under my control. I actually had some sentiment for the foul place because it had been the place of my birth. He looked up at Huma. Have you ever heard of Kulthari? No? I'm not surprised. It's a tiny farm province in the midst of Istar. Other than oats, the only thing of value they can sell are a few strong backs for mercenary troops. Imagine the greatest mage who will ever exist born in a worthless province. It must have been terrible for you. Huma surprised himself with the comment. The reptilian features twisted into a harsh smile. How true! How true! No one else has been able to appreciate that. I imagine it is because you found yourself growing up under similar circumstances. Dracos, it seemed, had learned much about him. It was left for you. The sudden clarity of that thought overwhelmed Huma. It was not his own. Rather, it almost sounded like Magius. What had been left for him? Sensing something, one of the dread wolves trotted over to him and sniffed. The smell of decay sickened Huma. For his part, Dracos stared at something within the sphere, something that perhaps only he could see. The sound of long, leathery wings caused him to look up. Scion Bloodbane had returned without his master's permission. The look in the young green dragon's eyes spoke of fear. Master Galen, the ogres begin to break. My brethren flee in panic. The cowards! What shall we do? Dracos was actually jubilant. The time has come. The level of chaos is at its peak, unprecedented since before the Age of Dreams. To the anxious dragon he replied, Leave us! I will not have your stench fouling this room at such a time. The young dragon departed in haste. Dracos summoned the two dread wolves who began to shiver uncontrollably. Huma watched with disgust and amazement. He could actually see the life essence, if that was what one called it, depart from the two ghoulish abominations. They did not even struggle. Galen Dracos removed his hands from the two gaunt, motionless forms. The dread wolves crumbled to ash. Fear is chaos. War is chaos. Chaos is unlimited power. It is a power that even the gods respect. Do you understand? Huma blinked. In his morbid fascination over the destruction of the dread wolves, he had not been listening. What are you going to do? This! The mage stroked the globe. This is the key to creating a conduit between our plane and the abyss, a portal or gateway to the Dragon Queen's domain beyond. Understand this. When the gods come to the mortal plane, I mean truly come to the mortal plane, they are but shadows of their true selves, which is not to say that they are weak, far from it. However, their counterparts have them at a disadvantage. The knight's eyes brightened with understanding. Which is why the Dragon Queen has never been far from the gateway she created. She fears that Paladin will strike at her during some moment of crisis. Now, though, you've created a way that she can draw upon her full strength even while on our world. Galen Dracos tensed, then smiled coldly. A tremor seemed to shake the citadel, but the mage paid it no mind. You are more astute than I thought. Still, the small matter of your interference will be history before long. Almost. A vague image flicked in and out of Huma's memory. Consider yourself honored.
You are about to witness an event that will change all of Kryn.
With that remark, the great emerald sphere flared with stronger intensity. Galen Dracos pulled his hood forward again and summoned a pale, bone-colored staff from thin air. Huma's eyes focused completely on the renegade's staff. That was the key. The Staff of Magus, dropped by his companion after his capture by the Black Guard. Dropped? Left behind by its owner, more likely. Magus easily could have summoned it at any time, just the way Galen Dracos had summoned his own. What was he supposed to do, though? Where was it now? The torches flickered as the renegade raised his own staff. He seemed to be drawing the flames to him. The chamber grew darker.
Takesis, great queen, mistress of the dark, the time has come to fully open the portal. The time has come to let your full power flow from your domain into this one.
The Staff of Magus was temporarily forgotten. Huma watched in horror as the wall behind the sphere began to warp and twist as some mad dreamscape. Then, slowly, that part of the building seemed to completely fall away. It was not the mountains, though, that stood revealed by the spell. Rather, it was a dark and chaotic landscape that seemed to spill into a gaping, endless pit from which no light could escape. Even as Huma watched, the landscape changed again. It was wooded now, but the trees were either dead or dying, and they were as black as night. Next, it became a burning desert from which the bones of forgotten travelers protruded. Within moments, it was a veritable sea of bones. What is it? Huma thought he knew, but he hoped that the mage would deny it. Galen Dracos turned from the maddening scene and stared through narrowed eyes at night.
That is the domain of my mistress. That is the abyss. It keeps changing. It is your mind that is perceiving changes. The abyss is based on one's experiences. In this case, yours. I have learned to control such subconscious thoughts.
Galen Dracos stepped down from the platform and approached Huma, who struggled vainly. The citadel shook again, but Dracos seemed still unaware of it. He reached up a taloned hand to the knight's forehead.
You needn't worry, the renegade's tone was patronizing. I have neither the time nor the power to spend on you. I'm simply going to block your thoughts from the abyss. Like putting up a wall.
Huma's head was knocked back by percussive force. For a brief moment, all thought vanished. Soon, Dracos was atop the platform again. He tapped his ivory staff twice and began muttering in some magical tongue. The emerald sphere gleamed like a miniature sun. The castle shook again.
The bond with the abyss is secure,
the renegade shouted out triumphantly. Something glimmered within the globe. Dracos caused his staff to vanish and put both hands on the glowing artifact. He stared into it, oblivious to the near blinding light. The muttering renewed. Huma summoned the staff by thought. He could not say whether the thought was his own, or, as he half believed, that of the vengeful spirit of Magus. He only knew that he had to concentrate on calling the staff of the dead mage, and he had to do it now. So simple, now that he knew. 1 minute his hands were empty, the next his left hand held a compacted version of the staff. His eyes suddenly widened as he felt a quiver in the palm that clutched the magic item. As if moving with a life of its own, it turned in his hand and tapped the stone claw that held his wrist. The gargoyle released his wrist. Galen Dracos was still facing the sphere. His hands were outstretched as if imploring some private god. Huma freed his right wrist. Dracos shouted incomprehensibly. The glow from the globe had spread to encompass the mage. He was taller now. Huma stared at the sphere. Energy seemed to swirl chaotically within it. The citadel shook violently this time.
No! This time Dracos seemed to be talking to someone else. The flow is too great. I need to draw more power or the energy will overwhelm me.
Huma did not understand the words, but he knew that he had to break the link between the planes, if Takesis was drawing on that power. This time the tremor was so violent that several gargoyles tipped forward and smashed into the floor. Galen Dracos' expression did not change when he saw that Huma was free. He only muttered something under his breath, and then immediately returned his attention to the spell. The moment Huma was free, the staff, as if alive, began to stretch and widen. It was growing as it had before. Gargoyles were suddenly stepping from their niches, creating a hodgepodge of collection of monstrosities that all had one thing in mind, the death of Huma. Having been trained in quarterstaff, Huma found the mage's staff effective as such a weapon. Each touch sent sparks flying, and the gargoyles might as well have been made of butter for the way it cut through them. Still, a severed limb or a decapitation was not sufficient to stop even one of the creatures. They came at him from all directions, and Huma knew the renegade would never run out of unliving servants. Nevertheless, he fought with all his determination and faith in Paladin. Huma knew he needed only one good swing at Dracos, but the gargoyles were pressing at him from all sides, and the staff was virtually useless at such close quarters.
Yes, I know. Yes, the neighbors are home. Yes, the neighbors are home. It's okay. Yes, I understand.
The neighbors are... Somebody's breaking into the neighbors' apartments, disguised as the neighbors!
That'd be Goofus. Stop it.
Huma knew he needed only one good swing at Dracos, but the gargoyles were pressing him from all sides, and the staff was virtually useless at such close quarters. Unless something happened, he had only seconds left before the crush of stone creatures brought him down. Huma! The voice came from above, shouting down even the reverberations of the citadel. What was Dracos doing? Did he need to bring down the mountains themselves? Huma! Huma could see her now. Gwyneth! She spied him and spiraled down even as a gargoyle knocked the staff from Huma's hand. The silver dragon roared and struck out at the nearest of the stone creatures. They shattered into sand. She flew up and around, and then back down to attack once more. Several of the gargoyles were turning away from Huma to attack this new foe. Gwyneth found herself being dragged down by the combined weight of 4 of the animals who had attached themselves to her underside. Roaring more from annoyance than pain, she whirled as best she could in the wide chamber in an attempt to throw the gargoyles from her. They clung tight, though, and she was forced to fly upwards and out of the room in order to shake them off. Even so, the silver dragon had bought Huma time. He grabbed the staff of Magus and whirled again, eliminating the nearest attacker in his first swing. The others attempted to close once more. Several figures came rushing towards the room. Blackguard, the ebony-armored figures paused in the archway and gaped at what they saw. Spit. Need a second. My girlfriend loves me very, very, very much. And I love her very, very, very much. She takes good care of me. Ugh. Needed to clear my throat. Huma glimpsed at the mad gaze of Dracos as he briefly turned towards the soldiers. A light, much like the glow of the emerald sphere, glittered in his eyes. He spoke a single word, the strain of even that causing him to flinch. A thin, deadly bolt of green energy originating from the globe whipped towards the unsuspecting warriors with frightening speed. It split them in two and then into 4 separate bolts. It split into 2 and then 4 separate bolts before it was halfway to them. Belatedly, the guardsmen realized their plight and turned to run. 4 did not even have time to move. They were harpooned like fish by the bolts of energy and dragged into the chamber. Huma shivered. The spell seemed to be as much in control of Galan Dracos as he was of the spell. The knight doubted the renegade really even knew what he had done. All that mattered to Dracos now was power. The other guardsmen fled. From his vantage, Huma watched helplessly as another bolt issued forth, this time at him. It slammed into his chest, the very force of it spilling over to strike at the host of gargoyles. At first, Huma felt his energy literally being drained from him. Then something repelled the parasitic bolt and sent it writhing back into the emerald globe. Huma felt his chest and discovered the medallion given to him by Avondale, a medallion of a cleric paladin. "Huma, the castle is breaking up!" A gargoyle fell to its knees. Another simply collapsed. Huma turned to find himself facing Galandragos. The renegade had a crazed look in its already inhuman face.
I will bend it to my will. I am Dracos, greatest mage to ever live!
The mage revealed his staff again and tapped it on the platform 3 times.
Sharak, Gastai, Sharak, Kerk!
The gargoyles had lost all semblance of life. As they collapsed around Huma, the silver dragon materialized again and flew to him. Dracos made no move towards them, did not even see them. Instead, he was grinning at the heavens, his form coursed with energy.
I've done it, mistress! The power is mine!
So caught up in his apparent triumph, the renegade did not see the image that formed in the emerald sphere, a mocking face, an inhuman face. Even as Huma watched, the face within the globe split and became 2, 3, the faces twisted, became reptilian, dragons, 5 heads at least, all mocking.
Huma, we must leave!
I cannot! Huma stared at the dragon lances that Gwyneth carried. They were too awkward for this purpose. Even the footman's lance was unwieldy. Then his eyes came to rest on the staff of Magus. An impulse came to him. He hefted the staff. Words he could not understand flowed from his mouth. The staff was suddenly luminous. He threw with all his might. The staff missed Galandragos, but neither was he the target. Instead, the staff, so much like a spear, flew with perfect accuracy at the very center of the glowing sphere. It seemed to hesitate when the tip made contact with the artifact, but then it continued through, shattering all resistance. "Don't look!" Huma cried to Gwyneth. The emerald sphere exploded with a roar. The citadel shook. The chamber tipped, as the castle felt the impact of the artifact's destruction.
"Huma!"
The silver dragon nudged him.
"We must flee! Hurry!"
He regained his footing, partially clutching one of her wings. A quick glance showed him that the platform was already being engulfed in a greenish inferno that seemed to cover the entire wall. From without, something roared.
"Paladin!"
he whispered. It could not be! Huma could imagine only one creature that could emit such a deafening, earth-shaking cry. A dragon, a giant dragon, a titan with 5 heads, he suspected. Tachesis.
"You!"
Huma forgot the roar and whirled back to the blaze where this new cry had originated. Something slowly emerged from the emerald fire. It blazed, but it did not burn. It walked on 2 legs, but was no longer human in any way. It raised a taloned claw that had once been a hand. A demonic face with twisted features, like some distorted serpent, was evident under the torn and tattered remains of a hood.
"Huma!"
Galandragos tumbled forward.
"I will see you dead!"
Something with tendrils shot towards him, and was daunted by what momentarily seemed like a silver shield. Galandragos took a step back.
"You have your patron as well. Pity is too late for Kryn."
The face twisted. Huma took a step forward. Gwyneth began to protest, but the knight stared her into silence. Then he slowly began to walk towards the mad mage. "Too many people have perished because of you, Galandragos. As paladin, as my witness, I cannot allow you to remain free. It must end here." When Dracos finally spoke, his voice was under control. He stared off into the distance.
"Yes, it will end here. With the victorious, with my treachery unmasked, I have gambled, and I have lost."
Dracos turned back towards Huma, then seemed to shrug. The renegade stumbled back towards the edge of the inferno. His legs could barely walk anymore. He relied more and more on his staff. Huma came purposefully towards him. "I cannot let you go." The deformed mage laughed, a laugh that seemed to go on much too long. The eyes of Galandragos were narrow with narrow slits that gleamed.
"I'll not wait for the Queen's justice. I prefer oblivion to that. She shall not have my damned spirit to toy with for all eternity."
Galandragos, master mage, renegade, spoke a single word. The emerald flames engulfed him. Whatever immunity he had was discarded. Huma covered his eyes as the fire flickered more brightly. When he looked again, there was nothing remaining of the mage. He burned himself. No, the silver dragon shook her head. He ceased to exist. It was the last spell he unleashed. It's as if he never was. Before long, those who ever knew him will never remember, save his former mistress, I think. She frowned. He's actually escaped from the Dragon Queen. Amazing. The citadel began to shift downwards again. Huma! Her momentary fascination faded immediately as Gwyneth realized the danger. Yes, he began to climb atop her. Then he stopped. No, the Staff of Magus. I have to see... Is that the small rod on your belt? He looked down. On his right side, stuck securely through his pouch belt, was a familiar foot-long stick. How? Gwyneth finally grew exasperated. I will explain to you about magic some other day, Huma. As Paladin, as my witness, I love you. I will not see you die here if I can help it. At those words, he scrambled clumsily aboard. Each moment she stayed risked her own existence. And for what? His hesitations, his fears. And yet, she loved him. The silver dragon rose swiftly into the air. Lie flat against me and hold the dragon lance straight, she cried. The citadel continued to shift as it slid downwards. The gargoyles were tossed like rags. Parts of the chamber began to break off. A portion of the upper passage collapsed. Now the silver dragon would not be able to escape through its narrow funnel. Huma heard her shout something in one of the magical tongues. He heard masonry shatter, and then bits of rock flew by his head. Steady! This is it! He felt the dragon lance as it cut into the thick stone wall, enlarging the gap. Gwyneth's wings folded back, and she glided up like an arrow shot from a bow. Huma knew she was shielding him with her own body as much as possible. Then they were out. Huma realized that he had been holding his breath, and he exhaled. The silver dragon spiraled upwards. From above, they could see that a green blaze now engulfed much of the castle. What remained standing of the mage's tower stood perched momentarily over the precipice. It weaved there and then slowly began to tip over. First the tower went, a great shaft that tipped forward and plummeted over. Huma turned his eyes towards the heavens. Paladin! A new and greater darkness had come up suddenly. Huma! The silver dragon's voice was unsteady. He followed her gaze to the very top of the same peak that the citadel of Galandracos had fallen from. Something huge, something multi-headed, and something radiating evil gazed in their direction. Huma, champion of Paladin, come to me. Come to my embrace. Takesis. Chapter 31. The near-hypnotic quality of the Dragon Queen's call was broken by a familiar voice. Huma! Thank the gods! We were afraid you had fallen in the citadel! He turned in the saddle. Bennett and Kaz rode near him. Kaz quickly explained, We sent the others to seek aid, only... Sargus, what is that? Bennett's voice was drained of emotion. It is the Dragon Queen, is it not? Huma only nodded. He stared up at the shadowy monstrosity above them. The portal through which the Dark Queen had come was expanding, and she seemed to be growing more solid, more real. A thought struck the knight. He reached down to his side for the compacted Staff of Magus and handed it to Bennett. Take this back to Vanguard Keep. It must be turned over to the Conclave. As ruling mages, they'll know what to do with it. It belonged to Magus, and I fear that it won't be of much use to me anymore. Kaz and Bennett looked at one another. Huma fixed each of them with a gaze. It must be told that Dracos is no more. I also need you to organize the Lancers. Bennett, you are the son of one Grandmaster and the nephew of another. You were born to lead. I will draw the Dark Queen's ire for as long as I can, but a mass attack remains our only true chance. There must be at least 100 lances left. Then, Paladin willing, we will be able to count for something. Bennett shook his head. Huma, this is a goddess. We are less than a single breath to her. But we are Knights of Solamnia, Huma responded, a knighthood forged by the Holy Triumvirate of which Paladin is senior. Our mission has been to keep the justice and see that evil never holds sway over Krynn. This is our ultimate test. This is where we truly test ourselves against the oath and the measure. The other knight could think of no response. Bennett's face had reddened slightly. I have no time to argue. Return, Bennett. Kaz, go with him, Huma said. The Minotaur looked down at his mount, then back at Huma. I agree that one of us should return, and it is right that it be Bennett. But I will stay. I swore an oath too, and I have not yet proved myself, and Bolt thinks as I do. Huma sighed. Kaz, I cannot stop you. Bennett, do your duty. Bennett gritted his teeth but nodded. At a signal, his silver dragon turned, but not before meeting the gaze of Gwyneth. Some message passed between them, and Huma remembered that here was kin of his own dragon. Parting was no easier for them. When Bennett was gone, Huma turned to the Minotaur. Now. The two dragons rose higher and higher. Above them, Takhisis' five-headed dragon form seemed to waver. The entire mountain and even the heavens above were being warped by a vast hole in the fabric of the sky itself, the gateway from which the Dragon Queen had materialized in this world, the portal through which she had drawn her absolute power with the help of the unlamented Galandracos. Her full power was cut off from her because Huma had shattered the Emerald Sphere, but the gateway remained, and Takhisis already had the power she had drawn in earlier. Never in her invasions of the mortal plane had she ever been so strong. Enchanting. Even more interesting than your constant need to argue with one another over hopeless causes. The cold, cruel thoughts buffeted Huma's mind. I will have to gather a few such as you and study this amusing, transitory thing called love. It seems so wasteful. At least Huma had some satisfaction that he knew Takhisis could never experience any of the emotions he felt. They would ever be a mystery to one such as her. In that, she was less than any mortal. Teach me, then. Though he knew her dragon form still perched atop the mountain, he also saw the graceful, enticing figure of a raven-haired enchantress, clad in the thinnest of dark silks. When she smiled, it was as if, for the first time, anyone had truly done so. I could be whatever you desire me to be. I could be whatever you desire me to be. You could show me this love you think so much of. I could be a very willing student. In his mind, the seductive form turned to the side slightly, revealing new and provocative poses. Huma found it impossible to concentrate. She was beautiful beyond compare, and she was willing to learn what it meant to love, to be a mortal. If he could show her what it meant, then Kryn might never again have to know evil or suffering. There was added, and it weighed heavily, the interesting aspects that would surely be involved in teaching her. She smiled and seemed to hold out a slim, perfectly sculpted hand. Huma felt a warmth on his chest. Involuntarily, he clutched at it. A familiar object seemed to fall into his hand. No! He shouted on impulse. I will not fall for your dark charms. You cannot ever know love or life, and I want no part of you. My love is for another. He felt a jolt beneath him, as if Gwyneth had caught herself. He had no more time to think of her because the Dragon Queen once again clutched his thoughts. You might have known joy such as no man has ever known. You might have commanded my armies, for no warrior has proved more resourceful, more adaptable, and more determined than you. You could have been second only to me, and I would have rewarded you beyond your expectations. A horrible wind rose up. The silver dragon was nearly swept against the mountainside, and Bolt and Kaz fell behind. Huma gripped the dragon lance with one hand and fingered the medallion of Paladin in the other. With both of them, he was able to maintain hope. Very well. You have rejected me. You have opened the doorway to your own destruction, and that of the one you love. Unable to know love, the Dark Queen was all too familiar with hate. Huma! The knight turned back briefly and saw Bolt being forced to land on a rocky ledge. Kaz was clutching the saddle desperately. This is between us now, oh so mortal knight of Solamnia. You will beg for forgiveness for all that you have done. You will plead with me for an end to the agony, but it will not be until the end of eternity that I may even consider granting it. Huma recalled the choice made by Galandracos, oblivion of the body and soul rather than the tender justice of the Queen of Darkness. This from one who had no compassion, who had cruelly tortured mages, who had sent thousands to their needless deaths. In the end, there had been only fear for Dracos, fear at the thought of being at the mercy of his mistress. First, I will batter your physical form to jelly, but you will not die. Then I will take your mind and reveal to it the full, dark beauty of my domain. Madness will not save you. I will not allow it. Then I will take your love and treat her to only the finest of my entertainments, while you helplessly watch.
Huma had seen wonders and terrors that few men had faced, and only his belief in Paladin and the justice and good that the god represented had saved him. Each time that belief had strengthened him. Huma had come to love Kryn as much as Paladin, and he was willing to sacrifice all for the sake of the world, if it meant the defeat of darkness. Rather than urge Gwyneth back, Huma pressed her on. The silver dragon obeyed. She would not abandon him.
You are fools, bigger fools than Dracos, who believed he could become a god.
His escape into oblivion saved him from my tender mercy.
What will save you?
It was as if a curtain had suddenly been drawn away. The Dragon Queen stood watching, her beauty breathtaking and terrible at the same time. Each head of the gigantic dragon mocked him, 5 in all, and each one representing one of her children. Cunning and cruel green, tenacious white, powerfully destructive red, unpredictable black, dominating blue. They swerved sinuously back and forth as if weaving a hypnotic spell. Never did their eyes leave Huma, never did a single head pause in its movements. The Dark Queen was well over 60 feet of pure power. Each movement was grace and strength incarnate. Each movement, no matter how subtle, she revealed the foolishness of daring to forestall her will.
Now you see, now you know.
The quick, tinier white dragon suddenly exhaled in his direction. Huma barely saw the cone of intense frost projected at him, but Gwyneth swerved easily and flew out of range. The dragon of many colors and none, the ancient name came back to Huma, laughed scathingly. The attack had been no more than a play to the goddess, as a cat plays with a mouse before eating it whole. Wind continued to whip around, and the silver dragon veered perilously close to the side of the mountain. The heads of the Dragon Queen laughed in amusement. There was a slight hesitation in the actions of the godly Leviathan as Huma's mind shifted. She was also mocking him no longer. The focus of each pair of eyes was more intense, as if she studied him anew. The massive wings spread in what Huma might have termed the anxiousness of a normal dragon. Huma signaled to Gwyneth. She turned, gave herself plenty of space from the terrible form of the Dragon Queen, and turned to face the goddess. Huma's hand steadied the dragon lance. The 5 heads froze in position. The knight signaled again. The tempest unleashed by the Dragon Queen increased tenfold, forcing both Kaz and Bolt to seek the safety at the innermost part of the ledge. They had only a brief glimpse as the silver dragon defied the ripping winds and the sudden torrential downpour, and continued forward with ever-increasing speed. Then knight and dragon vanished as they neared the top of the peak. Kaz muttered a prayer to every god of Paladin's house that his hazy memory could recall. He saved his last and longest for the Platinum Dragon, the god known to the humans as Paladin. Chilling frost, quick deadly lightning, a hissing steam of poisonous gas, bright flames sputtering and splattering acid. Each head unleashed its power against the 2. Gwyneth turned and dodged and turned, then spiraled as she sought to escape one hideous attack after another. Sometimes even her skill was not enough. Acid burned a multitude of tiny holes in her wings. Flames singed her back. Huma maintained his grip on the dragon lance despite it all. As yet they made no strike against the Dragon Queen. That she had not struck them down with all of her powers was of vital interest. It meant that the Queen of Darkness had but a fragile hold on her own increased strength. She was seeking to do much, spreading her power too thin, extending too many disparate spells. Gwyneth unleashed a cone of frost at the green head of the goddess, who shook it off as one might shake a leaf. Jaws snapped dangerously close. Huma glimpsed the head of a red dragon as Gwyneth flew out of reach. When she turned towards the Dragon Queen one more time, Huma saw that the great creature was at last rising from the peak. No longer did the Dark Lady believe her victory assured. She was taking the battle to Huma, determined to prolong this fight no more than necessary. Seen in the air, the Dragon Queen was at least 10 times larger than the Silver Dragon. Her wingspan covered the sky. Each of her foreclaws could have taken the head off of Huma's companion and crushed it easily. "I'm bored with games. You flutter like a butterfly." The silver dragon started, and Huma realized that this time was the first time that Takhisis had spoken to Gwyneth. The black head of Takhisis shouted something in a magical tongue. Knight and dragon were suddenly plunged into darkness. A roar. Claws raked the air above Huma. The silver dragon dropped at the last instant. The dragon lance still glowed, the only illumination in the sky.
Light? You cannot have light!
Even Huma had not noticed it at first, but it was true. The darkness became shadow, the shadow became light again. Takesis hovered, infuriated by the power of the Dragonlance.
Paladin cannot protect you forever!
Huma, the silver dragon called to him, her breathing painfully short. I cannot evade her much longer. Huma touched the medallion hanging on the center of his chest. He nodded. It is time we met her. Come to me, then. Meet my embrace. I offer you the same chance I gave to Galandraco's Dark Queen. I offer you the chance to surrender.
You jest in the time of your destruction, mortal Huma. I find your humor interesting.
I shall have an eternity to amuse myself. Huma steadied the Dragonlance so that it pointed directly towards the center of the Dragon Queen's great form. See if I'm jesting. This is the power of Paladin. No mortal weapon can strike you down, but the Dragonlance is no mortal weapon. You are immortal, though, Knights of Solamnia. Huma dipped his head in acknowledgement. I am a Knight of Solamnia. I am the Hound of Paladin, of Kirijolith, and of Habakkuk of this world. You are on Kryn. You are mine, Queen of Darkness. He kicked Gwyneth in the sides, and she burst forwards with new energy. The Dragonlance shone brightly, and a strange thing happened. It seemed to Huma that the armor he wore became brighter, felt different. To the look and touch it appeared as platinum. Gone were the dents and the tears that he had accumulated. His gauntleted hand seemed to glow with the same brilliance as the lance. He recalled then the vision he had had and the sculpture from which he had taken his first of the lances. Below him, Gwyneth was also transformed. She was longer, sleeker, and far more beautiful. She was a gleaming white charger, a platinum dragon, and a majestic kingfisher. All he saw might have been an illusion, but did the Dragon Queen see the same thing? He could not be sure. Huma only knew that the huge chromatic beast had hesitated again. This time the dragon met dragon. Claws and teeth struck out. The Dragonlance was only momentarily impeded. Huma braced himself for contact. The Dragon Queen had not counted on her own momentum to such an extreme. Her body tipped forwards, and the Dragonlance suddenly found the unprotected neck of the centermost head. Ichor splattered Huma. Some of it burned his injured leg, momentarily startling him from his almost trance-like state. Huma forced the thought of pain from his mind. Takesis shuddered uncontrollably as pain coursed through her. Her scream literally shook the mountains and was heard over miles. 4 heads turned blindly to the source of that pain. The 5th, the blue one, dangled awkwardly, useless now. Takesis clawed wildly. In vain she tried to pry the Dragonlance from its bind, but the silver dragon would not back off. The 4 remaining heads snapped at the silver dragon, at Gwyneth. The Queen of Darkness had never felt pain before, Huma realized. Takesis clawed and bit at them in her agony. Huma signaled Gwyneth to retreat. To his horror, he discovered that the lance would not come loose. The silver dragon was beginning to bleed heavily, and Huma saw that she was covered in a vast number of ragged, dripping cuts. Her tattered wings flapped slowly, and her breathing became more shallow. The Dragon Queen continued screaming, and her wings thrashed back and forth. The mounting for the Dragonlance bent considerably. Huma tried in vain to steady the lance. The back end of the weapon suddenly shot upwards, striking him soundly in the side of the head. Huma fell back, dazed and bleeding. He heard something snap. With a gargantuan effort, he pulled himself forwards, and found only the splinters remaining of the mounting. Takesis had stripped him of the lance. Where was she? Huma. Gwyneth! He leaned forwards. She was breathing irregularly, and each movement of her mouth dripped with blood. Down there. I cannot. Her wings froze in mid-motion. They began plummeting towards the mountainside. He screamed her name once before they hit. Then he felt his body thrown from the saddle, and all was night. For those of you watching the clock, it is over an hour, so let's hope that this saves and records. When he awoke, the world was red, blood and pain. For hours, it seemed, he just lay there. His eyes were stinging red, and his vision was bleary. All he could really see were shapes. The wind still howled. There was nothing he could do about the pain. It coursed through his body. His wounded leg was numb. With great effort, Huma raised himself to a sitting position. Huma attempted to rise then, but he only fell over face first into the cool earth of the mountainside. His mind again blazed with pain. He crawled now. He saw no sign of Gwyneth nor the Dragon Queen. The knight managed to pull himself along inch by inch. As he struggled, something near the top of the mountain caught his attention. A hand. A human hand. He was not quite sure where the reserves of energy came from, but Huma succeeded in pulling himself up towards the figure lying near an outcropping. Gwyneth! She had shifted to her human form. The wounds that covered her natural form were no less terrible. One arm lay twisted beneath her. Her face was now as pale as her silvery hair. Her breath came in short, rasping shudders. Time and again she twitched uncontrollably, and small sounds of pain, akin to what an animal might make, escaped her cracked and bleeding lips. There were bleeding cuts and dark bruises all over her body. It was a marvel that she had lived. His mouth opened in a soundless cry. Huma dragged himself to her side, ignoring his raw, bloody hands and the agony that jolted him continuously from within. When he reached her, he finally noticed that, with her good arm, she clutched the footman's dragonlance as if it were life itself. Even as torn and battered as she was, Gwyneth had saved the smaller dragonlance, knowing that it was the only weapon that could save them if the Dragon Queen returned. He repeated Gwyneth's name. Something roared. Gwyneth's eyes opened wide and she stared straight up. Huma! Rest. Kaz or someone will come. No! Her eyes teared. Takisas! You mustn't let her go free! The knight looked up. Something thrashed beyond the rise, something huge and in terrible pain. The roar came again. Gwyneth coughed up blood. Sooner or later, she will overcome the Dragonlance. You have to do something before she does. What can I do? Huma could barely prop himself up. Oh. But, no doom scrolling. What can I do? Huma could barely prop himself up. Take this, she indicated the smaller Dragonlance. I managed to save it. Gwyneth clutched suddenly at him. Are you hurt badly? Let me help you. Forget me. Forget the Dragon Queen. What is happening to you? Why are you human? Are you healing yourself? It doesn't matter. The fall only hastened the damage. I only thank Paladin that you are still alive. Don't talk anymore. She couldn't be dying, Huma thought in horror. I can save her, mortal! The wind suddenly seemed frigid. Huma stood silently as the words sank in. How? He thought. Slip the pain! She's not beyond me yet. Release me from this agony, and I will gladly restore you both. I swear it by the beyond. I swear it, high God. Huma looked down to see Gwyneth looking up at him intently. Her breathing was faint. What is it? She offers us, you, life. In return for what? He hesitated. Her release. Gwyneth coughed uncontrollably. She closed her eyes. For a moment the knight was afraid that she was already gone. She opened her eyes again, though, and fixed her gaze on him. You cannot kill her. That is not possible. But you cannot release her either. All of Krynn will suffer for her torment. My life is not worth that. She paused. The strain of speaking was using up what little strength she had left. Huma draped her with his body so that the harsh wind did not strike her full force. I won't let you die. You don't have any choice. She smiled faintly. You can't, Huma stammered, then finally spoke the words he had long ago admitted to himself. I love you. I'm ashamed that I could not say it before. I will not lose you. Her face became radiant despite the fearsome wounds. I want you to remember me as I am now. Now, for this is truly me. I first truly lived as a human. She took a deep breath. I lived as a human. Her hand slipped from him. I will die as a human, knowing at last that you... Gwyneth closed her eyes as pain racked her. Huma held her as she quivered. You... Her shaking subsided. The knight loosened his hold. Gwyneth's eyes were closed, and in her deathly visage there was now an awed serenity. Gwyneth... Mortal! It's not too late! Huma lowered her head. A tail flickered briefly in sight and then vanished again behind the rise. The sky was dark once more. The portal to Kesis' gateway to and from the abyss had dwindled to a mere shadow of its former sinister majesty. Yet it was still there. Seizing hold of the dragon lance, Huma began to drag himself towards the rise. His actions were involuntary. His mind contained only vague thoughts about what might have been. He no longer existed in the present. He was not even aware that he had not reached the rise until he found himself looking down at the Dragon Queen. She lay some distance below in a crater shaped by her fall. Huma lay there for a time. Breath came hard to him now, and he realized that his ribs must be broken. The scene faded in and out again and again. Somehow he managed to pull the dragon lance up to the top of the ridge and force it over point first. The chill wind no longer bothered him. It had only served to clear his mind for the purpose at hand. What? What are you doing? The Dragon Queen's thoughts suddenly flickered into his head. He was so startled he nearly dropped the lance over the side. Pulling it back, he used it to bring himself over to a wobbly standing position. The dragon lance readied like a spear, Huma stared down at the thrashing goddess. She lay on her back, her wings folded awkwardly behind her. The 4 remaining heads snapped wildly at the severed dragon lance still embedded in her form. The weapon sparked each time the heads came near, again and again and again, and they pulled away in pain. Hear me. At first there was only thrashing and the horrible cries of pain and fury. Hear me, he repeated. Mortal! What is it that you want? The huge dragon attempted to rise and failed. You are beaten, Kesis, Dragon Queen. I am not. I cannot be! Your armies are being routed. Your renegades are dead or scattered. The Conclave will hunt them down. Such will be watched more closely in the future. There will never again be another Galandracos. More time passed. The Dragon Queen was visibly struggling for control. What do you want? Mortal! The balance must be maintained. Without good, evil cannot grow. Without evil, good stagnates. I know I cannot kill you. Release me, then! Huma stumbled back at the intensity of the moment. The dragon lance almost slipped from his grasp. First, you must surrender. The wind had ceased. The sky was strangely clear. Sunlight warmed Huma's body. The portal was nearly non-existent. The form of the Dragon Queen had become very still. She almost seemed dead. Huma pulled the lance away from the edge and leaned over. The dragon's head, emerald green, shot up. Huma pulled back too late. A thick, hissing stream of noxious green gas shot forth, enveloping him before he could even think. He fell forward, and this time his grip on the lance loosened completely. It clattered down the ridge. The hapless knight also fell towards the Dragon Queen. He screamed with each bounce against the rock-strewn side of the crater. If he had been in pain before, now he learned the meaning of agony. He screamed and screamed, but he did not die. You still live! What does it take to kill you? You are only mortal! Despite the pain then, he laughed. I belong to Paladin. I belong to Gwyneth. Neither will ever let you have me. Huma pulled himself upwards. He coughed and his hands shook. He'd inhaled too much of the gas. The fall had racked his body, and it was all that Huma could do to keep himself sitting up, so violently did his head swim. He knew that despite his words, he did not have much time left. They are coming, Kesis. Who? The other dragonlances, more than 100 times the pain and the agony. I offered you a chance. They would not be so willing. You know that. They cannot kill me. They can give you eternal suffering. They cannot. The balance. You spoke of it. What do they care about the balance? So much better to have peace. That is what they will say. A long pause. Huma started to close his eyes, then fought to open them one more time. You will never free yourself before they arrive. Even if I die, they will still have you. A goddess at the mercy of mortals. What do you want? It was evidently a strain for her to continue. Only one head still stared in Huma's direction. The other three wavered uncontrollably. Withdraw from Kryn. I withdraw now. Very well. Withdraw your dragons as well. Never again must they come to Kryn. Take them with you. A long pause. Swear to it, he added. She hesitated. I do. I want you to swear by that you hold most holy. Both witnessed the single dragon flying overhead and heard the call of its rider, a voice familiar to Huma. Kaz. His voice was shaky and the dragon was visibly weary, but they circled above, ready to close. Your time is short, Queen. I swear that I shall withdraw. She writhed in pain, and for one moment Huma thought he might be crushed beneath her form. Withdraw from Kryn, along with my children, for so long as the world is whole. So do I swear by... She said it. By the beyond, by the high god. Bolt had landed nearby, vigilant. Kaz, disregarding the looming presence of the foul dragon queen, raced to Huma's side. You've won! You've defeated her! Kaz stopped abruptly, and his expression became serious. As I am your witness, Huma, I will remember, as I remember my ancestors. Huma silenced him with a look. Kaz, you must pull the dragon lance from her body. What? Kaz rose and stared at Huma as if the knight was bereft of his senses. Release her? She will wreak havoc all over. We will die if we're lucky. Huma shook his head. No, she swore. I can promise you that she will not... He wanted to shut his eyes. She will depart. I cannot. I cannot. Kaz, Huma grimaced. I promise her. It is a question of my honor. You understand honor. We say, est solaris os missas. In the old tongue. My honor is my life. The Minotaur looked from knight to the goddess, silent now, shuddering with pain. Hurry! The lance! My honor! The others won't let you. Reluctantly, the Minotaur moved. My honor, he said, half to himself, his eyes riveted on the task, is my life. The heads of the Dragon Queen swerved his way, but only one, treacherous green, remained fixed on Kaz. The others merely weaved back and forth as if all control had been lost. The lance was lodged deeply at the base of the neck of the blue head. With great distaste, and more than a little trepidation, Kaz climbed atop Takesis, the Dark Queen. The green dragon eyed him intently. In an act of mad bravado, the huge warrior snorted with disdain. He flinched when it looked as if the head were about to strike. But then the head turned to gaze grimly at the source of the queen's agony. Gods, muttered Kaz, and then clumped his mouth shut when he thought about the oath. He had reached the dragon lance. Getting a solid grip on it, the Minotaur heaved. The dragon lance slid free without the slightest resistance. Kaz lost his footing and went tumbling off the gargantuan form, the lance still in his hands. A horrible, mind-numbing laugh filled the air. Kaz came to a stop, turned over, and stared up. She was there in all her infernal glory, wings spread, enveloping the sky. All five heads looked up to the heavens and laughed. The pain, the wounds, it was as if they had never been. 5 terrible dragon heads looked down at the helpless and battered knight, then at the Minotaur who had freed her. Each draconian visage wore a malevolent smile. The sky burst into flames, and Kaz was forced to cover his eyes. When he opened them again, the sky was clear of clouds, and the sun, the long-forgotten sun, was shining majestically, triumphantly. The sun gleamed brightly now. Huma no longer felt cold, though he did not really feel warm either. Sleepy. That was how he felt. He discovered the medallion from Lord Avondale in his open hand. Paladin's face shone brilliantly in the sunlight. The glare was too much. Huma closed his eyes. He could not close his grip on the talisman. But that was all right. When the sun began to shift, he would like to look at it again. His thoughts turned to Gwyneth, and what they would do now that the war was over at last. Chapter 32. A temple. They're building you a kender-cursed temple when all you wanted was a place to rest. Kaz turned his horse away from this magnificent tomb. Lord Oswald shared the Minotaur's distaste for the elaborate trappings that Huma had never cared for in life, but there had been other things to consider. The people need a hero, the Grand Master had explained, with a somewhat dubious expression of his aged face. And the knighthood needs a standard to grow by, and Huma has provided both. Kaz wondered then how long it would take the people to forget Huma, or to think of him as they did other legends, just as one more story. Humans, dwarves, kender, and elves, they all had a tendency to forget or gloss over the truth as time went on. Even Minotaurs were guilty of that. He studied the path ahead. Bennett said that he believed the plains could be back to pre-war conditions within 5 or 6 years. Kaz estimated 9 or 10. Still, the road was serviceable, and that was what counted. He wanted to be as far away before the other knights discovered him missing. There was so much that one of his kind had never seen before. Qualinesti sounded interesting. The elves might offer an experience. The day was bright and warm, something Kaz was unaccustomed to. He was thankful he had packed plenty of water skins. Until he was more familiar with the land, he would have to be careful to conserve. The massive warhorse Lord Oswald had given him moved swiftly along the trail. There were many dips in the ravaged path, and much of his equipment was jostled around. The belt pouch slapping against his right side became such a nuisance that he finally pulled it off. Metal clanked against metal from within. Kaz pulled his steed to a halt and reached into the pouch. He pulled out 2 objects. The first was a seal bearing the sign of the knighthood on one side. The reverse side had the Minotaur's name chiseled in it, as well as the fact that he was indeed a Minotaur. A mark above his name indicated that he was under the protection of the Knights of Solamnia. Kaz had scoffed at first, but the Grandmaster was quick to point out that few people had anything good to say about Minotaurs. The tales of Huma had already circulated made no mention of Kaz. Many of the knights still could not reconcile the legendary knight's friendship with a being that most people considered a beast. Kaz carefully replaced the seal in the pouch and eyed the second item. It was the medallion of Paladin that the knight's lifeless hand had released when Kaz had lifted him up onto Bolt's back. The Minotaur had stuffed it into the pouch for safekeeping, and, up until now, had forgotten about it. Sunlight gleamed off the medallion, and Kaz looked up at the sky again. Things were changing. The dark dragons were gone, but so were the metallic ones. Bolt had departed without comment after they had brought back the bodies. No one had seen a dragon since. He kicked the warhorse slightly in the sides. As Kaz rode, he continued to finger the medallion. It had occurred to him to keep it, so that he would always have a token of his encounter with Huma. But now he was not so sure that it was by rights his. The medallion was halfway back into the pouch when he came upon a lone tree on the right side of the path. The others near it either lay uprooted or were dead. Only this one held any life, a few branches sprouting new green. On impulse, Kaz reached over and, when he was even with the tree, hung the talisman by its chain on a branch that overlooked a part of the trail. Est Solaris oth Mithras, the Minotaur muttered. Turning his gaze back to the trail before him, Kaz suddenly urged his mount to great speed. He would not slow the horse until the tree and the tomb were long out of view. So, this book was super, super important to me when I was a kid, and I'm very glad that I got to share it with you all. So, before I run too long and make my computer cry, good night. Sleep well. Get some rest and do your best to become somebody who you can be proud of. And if people can hate without knowing a thing about you, then I can love you for exactly the same reason. Good night.